A landmark trial this week in Los Angeles that questions whether tech giants Meta and YouTube intentionally make their products addictive. On the defense, star witness Mark Zuckerberg, Meta's CEO.
Mark, do you have a message to the parents?
Among those awaiting Zuckerberg's arrival were parents calling for accountability following years of concerns about the impact of Meta-owned Facebook and Instagram on youth mental health and self-esteem. In this trial, Meta and YouTube are accused of intentionally designing addictive features that hooked a now 20-year-old woman as a child, exacerbating her depression and suicidal thoughts. TikTok and Snapchat were also named in the lawsuit. They settled before trial. Meta argues it was the girl's difficult family life, not social media, that led to her struggles. Victims' rights groups call the trial a historic moment in American law.
It was something that for years a social media company never thought would happen. They never thought that they would ever have to face a jury. They never thought that they would have to stand up and explain themselves under oath. Because they thought that through Section 230 they could avoid the liability and avoid the responsibility that every other company in America bears witness to.
Matthew Bergman, a lawyer representing some parents who say social media harmed their children, said it is his group's hope and expectation that the social media platforms of the future will be safer than the ones today. He said he expects this was only the first of several trials in which Zuckerberg will have to testify. To help us break down this landmark case and to discuss what it might mean for social media companies moving forward, we are joined by Claire Morrell, a fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center and its Bioethics, Technology, and Human Flourishing program. She's also the author of The Tech Exit, a practical guide to freeing kids and teens from smartphones. Claire, thanks so much for being with us. I first want to give our viewers even more context about what we know about social media and our youth. According to the U.S. Surgeon General's own advisory on the topic, children and adolescents who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media face double the risk of mental health problems. And when asked about how social media impacts their body, 46% of teens between the ages of 13 and 17 said it makes them feel worse. You know, Claire, you have said that we are arriving at big tech's tobacco moment. Are we finally about to see tech companies be held accountable for how social media has harmed children?
I really hope so. I mean, this is a landmark trial that we've even been able to get to this stage, that we're actually able to see the internal evidence that these companies knew that their products were harmful and addictive to children. They were actually designed to be addictive. And so this is really all the internal evidence coming to light through this trial has just been so clear that they knew. They have internal studies saying we make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls. They've done studies that have shown teens are not able to control their compulsive use of Instagram. They say they want to use it less, but they can't. And they've known this all along and continue to prioritize their profits over the safety of our children. And so I really do think this is their big tobacco moment in the sense that the evidence speaks for itself. And I really hope that the jury will make the right decision here.
And just to put a fine point on that, Claire, from Mark Zuckerberg's testimony, did we in fact get clarity on whether Meta created internal employee goals to make Instagram more addictive? He's previously denied that claim, but speak more about what we learned from these internal documents.
Yeah, so he had to take the stand in this case under oath and basically was presented with internal documents from the company showing that he specifically set targets. It was like a 2015 memo saying that he hoped to grow user time spent on the platform by 12% the next year. So it was a clear goal of the company to increase user time spent on the apps. And they specifically targeted children. Another internal study said to Meta, internally, they said to their employees, the young ones are the best ones because they recognized the younger they can hook a user, the longer they can profit off of them over the course of their lifetime. Now, of course, during his testimony, he kind of tried to dodge these questions and sidestep them by saying, oh, well, we don't use these growth targets anymore, but could really present no evidence to back up his claim. And so I think just the disparity should hopefully be very clear to the jury between what he's saying and what the internal documents are really showing to be true.
That's pretty chilling. Claire, some of the most powerful voices calling for accountability are the parents who say that they lost their children because of social media. A group of parents spoke outside the courtroom this week, including this mother whose daughter died from fentanyl she bought from an older man on Instagram. Take a listen.
They were purposefully and intentional decisions that were made to not change their platforms or make safety features available when they knew they had harms on their platform.
Claire, how critical are these parents' voices, and what do you want parents to know if their teens are using social media?
Yes, these parents' voices are really critical. They are so brave and courageous to step up and tell their stories because they don't want other parents to fall into the same pain that they have experienced of the losses and harms they've suffered from their children on social media. And I am grateful that they finally have their day in court, that finally these executives are having to answer for those decisions that harmed their children. And I would just urge parents to keep your children off social media until there is change, until there is real accountability. Hopefully through this trial, parents just need to know how harmful and addictive and dangerous these apps are. And I would, as I encourage in my book, The Tech Exit, parents to keep their children completely off social media just because of the level of danger.
Well, and on that note, Instagram says it does prevent children under the age of 13 from joining, but is that the reality of what's happening?
Not at all. And Zuckerberg was questioned extensively about this. You know, they say the age is 13, but if you go to create a social media account, all you have to do is enter a birth date, which is easy to falsify. There's no verification process, and then click a box agreeing to their terms and conditions. And so in a matter of seconds, a child can have a social media account, even if they're under the age of 13. And he was really questioned about this fact. And, you know, studies have shown 40% of 9 to 12-year-olds in the United States are on social media. That's nearly half of pre-teens, and they're not supposed to have access. And so it is on the company. They need to be the ones enforcing the age gate on their platforms. And the reality is that they're not. And I think that they're not incentivized to because they recognize this is a market for them to profit off of.
Yeah. Zuckerberg was also grilled about policies relating to cosmetic beauty filters on Instagram. What do we know about the harms of these filters? And they really disproportionately impact young girls, don't they, Claire?
They do. It's really sad. So these filters actually mimic plastic surgery. So Instagram actually put a temporary ban on the filters because they were told they're harming young girls, they're causing body dysmorphia and eating disorder issues. But then Zuckerberg and Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram, chose to reverse that ban against the advice of 18 internal experts, all telling him that the research showed that these filters were harming young girls and their body image. And they chose to allow the filter anyway. And so I think that we really just have to see this for what it is. And he tried to kind of evade this answer on the stand as well by saying, well, you know, removing these filters would be overbearing. Yeah, that's really interesting spin. I think most parents would say it's a reasonable safeguard to remove such a dangerous filter.
Well, Claire, there's so much to discuss, but we'll leave it there. Claire, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.